strong mind doesn't beg for respect. It commands it without a word. Build a mind so sharp, so steady, so unshakable, it terrifies weakness. When you master your thoughts, you master your life. But if your mind is fragile, your potential remains trapped. Discipline is your sword. Focus is your shield. Control is your power. Will you train your mind to rise above every fear, every doubt, every noise? Or let your mind be controlled by the world? Decide now. The world will respond accordingly. In just a few moments, you'll learn how to build a mind so strong, fear and doubt no longer stand a chance. The power of unwavering self-belief. Most individuals underestimate what exists within their minds. A fortress of unlimited potential waiting to be unlocked. When you possess absolute conviction in your abilities, something remarkable happens. Obstacles dissolve before your very path. Consider what separates those who achieve greatness from those who merely dream about it. Is it intelligence? Resources? Connections? No, those are secondary factors. At its core stands unwavering self-belief, that immovable foundation upon which empires are built. Why does this matter so profoundly? Because your life expands or contracts in direct proportion to the depth of your belief system. When doubt creeps in, possibilities vanish. When certainty takes hold, mountains become molehills. Society constantly attacks you with messages of limitation. Be realistic, they say. Know your place. These invisible chains wrap around your thinking, restricting what you dare to pursue. But what if those limitations exist solely in your imagination? What if, through systematic mental conditioning, you could shatter those barriers forever? Now comes the crucial question. How exactly do you forge this level of unshakable confidence? Begin by auditing every thought that crosses your mind. Become vigilant about what narratives you permit to take residence in your consciousness. Whenever a limiting belief appears, I'm not qualified enough, people like me don't succeed at this. Immediately replace it with its empowering counterpart. Speak to yourself with the conviction of absolute certainty. Make declarations, not suggestions. I am capable becomes I possess exceptional capability. I will try transforms into I will succeed without question. Clarence Augustus Bartlett, a man from Yorkshire who, in 1962, stood before the British Parliament despite having been rejected 17 times previously. What distinguished him? While opponents mocked his humble background as a coal miner's son, Bartlett responded with a statement that silenced the chamber. My father taught me that a man's worth isn't measured by his starting point, but by his unwillingness to accept defeat as final. 6 months later, he passed legislation that transformed educational opportunities for working-class children throughout England. Are you currently accepting limitations that exist only in your mind? Have you confused temporary obstacles with permanent barriers? What extraordinary achievements await once you demolish these artificial constraints? Your potential remains dormant until activated by absolute belief. Notice what happens when you begin operating from unshakable confidence. People respond differently. Some become uncomfortable, even intimidated. They sense something has shifted, something they cannot quite identify. That magnetic certainty becomes a force that both attracts allies and unsettles those committed to mediocrity. When everyone around you settles for average results, but you stand firm in your conviction for excellence, it creates a contrast that can indeed terrify those content with less. Make no mistake, developing this level of self-belief requires deliberate, conscious effort. It won't materialize through passive wishing. Every morning, visualize your success with such vivid detail that your subconscious mind cannot distinguish it from reality. Throughout each day, speak affirmations that reinforce your unstoppable nature. Study the achievements of those who faced greater obstacles, yet prevailed through sheer force of belief. Are you ready to build a mind so powerful that doubt cannot penetrate its walls? Can you commit to this transformation, knowing that once complete, you'll become unrecognizable to those who knew your former self? The journey begins with a decision. Will you continue accepting artificial limitations, or will you embrace the boundless potential that already exists within you? Mastering disciplined daily habits, every extraordinary achievement throughout human history began with something deceptively simple: a commitment to daily disciplines that compound over time. Consider what separates the champions of life from those who merely exist within it. Great minds aren't born superior. They're methodically constructed through consistent, deliberate habits performed day after day, regardless of convenience or comfort. This mental fortitude doesn't appear overnight. It emerges through systematic practice that reshapes not just your capabilities, but your very identity. Why does this habitual approach matter so profoundly? Because your mind responds to conditioning exactly like your physical body. Just as muscles strengthen under resistance, mental toughness develops through deliberate challenge. The ancient wisdom holds eternally true. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then becomes not an occasional act, but a consistent habit. When others observe someone who executes with machine-like precision, regardless of circumstances, it creates a presence that intimidates through its sheer reliability. Those who surrender to momentary feelings find themselves perpetually intimidated by those who operate on principle rather than impulse. How do you implement this transformative approach? Begin by establishing non-negotiable rituals that form the foundation of your day. Rise at 5 a.m. while others sleep. Dedicate the first hour to mental conditioning, reading material that stretches your thinking, meditation that centers your focus, journaling that clarifies your intentions. Protect this sacred time as if your future depends upon it, because it absolutely does. Next, identify one uncomfortable action you've been avoiding and complete it before noon each day. This deliberate confrontation with discomfort reprograms your neurological response to challenge. Hiroshi Yamaoka transformed a struggling Tokyo manufacturing company into an international powerhouse. When questioned about his extraordinary rise, Yamaoka revealed that for 12 years without exception, he devoted 90 minutes every morning to studying international markets before his competitors even arrived at their offices. While they operated on reactive impulse, he executed with strategic precision. My advantage wasn't intelligence, he once explained to shareholders, but rather disciplined consistency when everyone else permitted themselves excuses. Are you currently allowing your potential to remain dormant through inconsistent effort? Have you convinced yourself that motivation must precede action, rather than understanding that disciplined action creates motivation? What extraordinary transformation awaits when you commit to excellence as a standard, rather than an occasional visitor? When your daily disciplines become unshakable, something remarkable happens. Average people become uncomfortable in your presence. They sense your commitment exposes their excuses. Your consistency highlights their compromise. Most individuals float through life, responding to whatever feels convenient in the moment, surrendering their potential on the altar of comfort. But when you develop rituals that override temporary feelings, you cultivate a mind that operates according to principles rather than preferences. Make no mistake, this level of discipline initially feels uncomfortable, even unnatural. Society celebrates spontaneity and instant gratification. Swimming against this powerful current requires conviction that transcends cultural norm. Each morning will present the same fundamental choice: temporary comfort or permanent greatness. The decision might seem small in isolation, but these daily choices accumulate into the very foundation of your character. Can you commit to establishing 3 non-negotiable disciplines beginning tomorrow morning? Will you protect these rituals with the same vigilance you would guard your most valuable possession? Remember that greatness never emerges from sporadic effort, but rather from consistent, principled action performed with unwavering commitment. The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that refuses to negotiate with weakness. The iron will of persistence. Something remarkable distinguishes those who merely dream from those who transform dreams into reality. An unyielding persistence that refuses surrender, regardless of circumstances. Consider any achievement of significance throughout history. Beneath its surface lies a foundation, built from countless rejections, failures, and setbacks that would have destroyed someone with ordinary determination. This capacity to continue forward despite overwhelming evidence suggesting defeat creates a presence that genuinely terrifies opposition. When someone knows that nothing will stop your advance, not rejection, not failure, not time itself, they recognize an unstoppable force. Why does this persistent mindset separate extraordinary achievers from everyone else? Because most individuals mistakenly interpret failure as an endpoint rather than a necessary component of success. They surrender precisely when breakthrough hovers just beyond sight. Study any significant accomplishment and discover the same fundamental truth. Success generally arrives one step beyond where most people quit. Those who internalize this wisdom develop immunity against discouragement that mystifies average observers. Their resilience creates an aura of inevitability that opponents find profoundly unsettling. How does one cultivate this level of unbreakable persistence? Begin by reframing every failure as invaluable data rather than personal rejection. When obstacles appear, immediately ask, what lesson must I extract from this experience? Next, develop what psychologists call explanatory style, the narrative you construct following setbacks. Instead of globalizing failure, isolate it specifically. Instead of seeing permanence, recognize temporality. This cognitive restructuring transforms disappointment from crushing weight into strategic intelligence. Margaret Sullivan revolutionized American healthcare systems despite being rejected by 17 consecutive hospital boards. When finally questioned about her extraordinary persistence, Sullivan revealed she maintained a rejection journal documenting every objection encountered. Each no provided another piece of information about resistance points requiring address, she explained. Rejections weren't personal insults, but rather invaluable market research. 2 decades later, her methodology had transformed administrative systems in over 40% of metropolitan hospitals nationwide. Are you currently allowing temporary setbacks to define your permanent identity? Have you confused normal resistance with evidence of impossibility? What breakthrough awaits just beyond your current threshold for disappointment? When your persistence becomes unbreakable, something fascinating occurs. People respond with either profound respect or noticeable discomfort. Your refusal to accept conventional limitations challenges their own surrender points. Most individuals construct elaborate justifications for abandoning difficult pursuits, creating the comforting illusion that success was impossible, rather than simply demanding extraordinary persistence. Your continued advance, despite identical obstacles, dismantles their protective narrative. Remember that persistence doesn't mean blindly repeating failed approaches. Rather, it means maintaining unwavering commitment to your destination while continuously adjusting your route based on feedback. Edison's 10,000 unsuccessful attempts weren't failures. They were essential steps eliminating what wouldn't work. His mind grew stronger with each apparent setback, eventually developing resilience that transcended normal human limitations. Will you commit to persisting through your next 10 rejections without surrendering your vision? Can you transform disappointment from emotional devastation into strategic intelligence? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that treats obstacles as nothing more than information, valuable data points, guiding necessary adjustments rather than signals to surrender. Harnessing the mastermind principle throughout history, something profound separates individuals who achieve modest success from those who transform entire industries, nations, or artistic domains. Their ability to harness collective intelligence through strategic alliance. Consider the fundamental limitation within even the most brilliant human mind: perspective constraint. No individual, regardless of genius, can perceive every possibility, identify every opportunity, or overcome every obstacle through isolated thinking. Those who recognize this truth and strategically unite complementary intellects create exponential rather than additive results. This capacity to orchestrate mental synergy produces outcomes that genuinely terrify conventional thinkers. Why does this principle generate such extraordinary advantage? Because when minds unite in perfect harmony toward common purpose, something metaphysical emerges, intelligence beyond the mere sum of individual contributions. Look carefully at any revolutionary breakthrough and discover the same pattern. Rarely does transformation emerge from solitary genius, but rather through the creative combustion of diverse perspectives focused on shared objectives. Those who master this principle effectively multiply their mental capabilities while competitors remain constrained by individual limitation. How does one effectively implement this transformative approach? Begin by conducting honest inventory of your intellectual and experiential strengths alongside your corresponding weaknesses. Identify precisely where your thinking requires complementary perspective. Next, deliberately seek individuals whose cognitive strengths align with your deficiencies while offering reciprocal value through your own expertise. But mere association proves insufficient. You must establish operational harmony through shared purpose, mutual respect, and systematic collaboration. Schedule regular mastermind sessions with clearly defined objectives and structured discussion protocols. Alexander Westbrook transformed Australia's struggling agricultural sector through mastermind implementation. Rather than attempting isolated innovation, Westbrook assembled monthly symposiums uniting meteorologists, soil scientists, equipment engineers, distribution specialists, and economic forecasters. Each participant viewed identical challenges through entirely different perceptual frameworks, he later explained. Solutions emerged, not from individual brilliance, but from collision between diverse viewpoints. Within 5 years, his collaborative methodology had increased national production yields by 73% during the worst drought cycle in recorded history. Are you currently attempting complex achievement through isolated thinking? Have you mistaken independence for strength rather than recognizing interdependence as multiplicative advantage? What breakthrough possibilities remain invisible due to your perspective limitations? When you successfully harness mastermind dynamics, something remarkable happens. Conventional competitors become genuinely disturbed by your accelerated progress. They observe your organization solving problems with uncanny efficiency while they remain trapped within singular viewpoint constraints. Most individuals operate from ego protection that resists external input, interpreting collaboration as admission of inadequacy rather than strategic amplification. Your willingness to synthesize diverse perspectives creates operational velocity that appears almost supernatural to isolated thinkers. Remember that effective mastermind implementation requires careful participant selection. Seek individuals who combine intellectual excellence with genuine desire for mutual success. Avoid personality conflicts that generate friction rather than creative spark. Establish clear operational guidelines ensuring balanced contribution, respectful discourse, and systematic implementation of emergent insights. The mastermind represents not casual association, but rather strategic alliance toward extraordinary achievement. Can you identify 3 individuals whose mental strengths would complement your limitations? Will you initiate mastermind formation with clear purpose, structured process, and mutual advantage? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that transcends individual limitation through strategic intellectual alliance, conquering fear through deliberate action. Something remarkable distinguishes individuals who achieve greatness from those who merely contemplate it: their relationship with fear. Consider what truly separates legendary figures from ordinary individuals sharing identical circumstances. Is it absence of fear? Absolutely not. Those who accomplish extraordinary feats experience identical emotional responses as everyone else. Their distinguishing quality lies in their behavioral response to fear, moving directly toward rather than away from what creates discomfort. This counterintuitive approach builds psychological immunity that appears almost superhuman to conventional observers. Why does this methodology create such profound advantage? Because fear represents nothing more than unmastered territory, psychological terrain your mind hasn't yet conquered through experience. Every capability you currently possess began as unfamiliar activity, generating discomfort. Those who systematically expand their comfort zones through deliberate discomfort accelerate personal evolution, while others remain confined within self-imposed limitations. When someone observes an individual who consistently moves toward rather than away from challenge, it creates presence that genuinely unnerves through its apparent fearlessness. How does one implement this transformative approach? Begin by identifying your current fear inventory, activities, situations, or conversations generating discomfort. Rank these from moderate to severe psychological resistance. Next, establish progressive exposure protocol, beginning with manageable challenges while systematically advancing toward higher resistance activities. Commit to completing one fear-inducing action daily, understanding that the psychological benefit emerges not from outcome, but from action itself. Document each experience, noting the typical pattern, anticipatory anxiety far exceeding actual discomfort during execution. Victoria Pemberton transformed British telecommunications despite having once struggled with debilitating social anxiety. When questioned about her extraordinary rise from back-office analyst to industry pioneer, Pemberton revealed her discomfort curriculum, deliberate weekly experiences designed specifically to expand psychological capability. Each Thursday afternoon for 5 years, I scheduled precisely what terrified me most, she later explained to industry executives: public presentations, confrontational negotiations, media interviews, advancing systematically through progressive challenge. This methodical comfort zone expansion enabled leadership capacity that competitors found genuinely intimidating. Are you currently avoiding experiences essential for your development? Have you mistaken temporary discomfort for genuine danger, rather than recognizing fear as growth indicator? What extraordinary capabilities remain dormant behind your avoidance patterns? When you consistently move toward rather than away from fear, something fascinating occurs. The psychological resistance preceding action diminishes through repeated exposure. Each experience demonstrating survival despite discomfort reconditions your neurological threat detection system. Most individuals construct elaborate avoidance mechanisms, preserving temporary comfort while sacrificing long-term capability. Your willingness to embrace short-term discomfort for long-term expansion creates accelerated evolution that conventional thinkers find genuinely unsettling. Remember that courage never emerges from emotional absence, but rather from behavioral persistence despite emotional resistance. True psychological strength develops not from avoiding triggers, but from systematic desensitization through deliberate exposure. Each fear-inducing experience successfully navigated becomes neurological evidence, expanding your perception of capability. This accumulated evidence eventually transforms your fundamental identity from someone avoiding challenge to someone energized by it. Will you commit to identifying 3 specific fears currently limiting your potential? Can you establish progressive exposure protocol, systematically confronting each limitation? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that interprets fear not as warning to retreat, but rather as invitation to advance, moving consistently toward rather than away from psychological resistance. The strategic power of silence within our constantly chattering world, something truly remarkable, distinguishes those who command genuine respect from those merely seeking attention: their strategic relationship with silence. Consider what separates individuals who genuinely influence others from those who simply make noise. Is it eloquence, charisma, volume? No, these are secondary characteristics. At its core stands the disciplined power of intentional silence, that space between thoughts where true wisdom emerges and genuine strength reveals itself. Why does this deliberate restraint generate such profound advantage? Because in a society addicted to constant expression, those who master selective silence develop extraordinary observational intelligence. While others frantically broadcast half-formed opinions, the strategically silent individual absorbs critical information, identifies patterns, and speaks only when genuine value can be added. This creates an unnerving presence where words, when finally delivered, carry unmistakable weight precisely because they emerge from careful consideration rather than impulsive reaction. How does one cultivate this formidable mental discipline? Begin by implementing the fundamental rule: never speak simply to fill silence. When conversation pauses, resist the societal programming demanding immediate sound. Instead, become comfortable within that open space, recognizing it as opportunity for deeper observation. Next, establish personal response protocols. Before speaking, mentally evaluate whether your contribution improves upon silence. Ask, Does this add genuine value? Have I fully considered alternative perspectives? What might I learn by listening longer? This disciplined filtering process transforms casual communication into strategic advantage. Rajiv Chandrasekhar revolutionized international diplomacy through his legendary contemplative pause. While negotiating critical trade agreements between competing Asian nations, Chandrasekhar would frequently remain silent for 45 seconds after opposing representatives finished speaking. The strategic void created something remarkable, a colleague later revealed. Adversaries uncomfortable with silence would invariably continue speaking, feeling critical information they had intended to withhold. This methodical restraint ultimately secured economic concessions competitors had previously declared non-negotiable. Are you currently diminishing your influence through impulsive expression? Have you confused quantity of words with quality of impact? What strategic advantages await when you release the compulsion to fill every conversational space? When your relationship with silence becomes strategic rather than uncomfortable, something fascinating occurs. Others begin associating your words with uncommon significance. They unconsciously recognize the deliberate consideration preceding your expression. Most individuals speak from reactive impulse, broadcasting thoughts the moment they form without allowing sufficient maturation. Your intentional restraint creates communication that emerges not from emotional reaction, but from comprehensive perspective, generating gravitas that conventional communicators find genuinely unsettling. Remember that strategic silence does not mean permanent withdrawal, but rather selective contribution. The goal isn't becoming uncommunicative, but rather extraordinarily intentional. Study carefully those rare individuals whose words carry unmistakable weight. You'll invariably discover minds that speak not from compulsion, but from carefully cultivated insight. Their restraint creates mental space where wisdom flourishes while impulsivity withers. Will you commit to implementing strategic silence within your next 3 significant conversations? Can you resist the societal pressure demanding constant expression? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that speaks not from neurotic compulsion, but from strategic intention, delivering words weighted with substance rather than merely filled with sound. The discipline of singular focus throughout human achievement, something profound separates those who accomplish extraordinary results from those perpetually busy yet producing little. Their relationship with attention. Consider what distinguishes individuals who transform industries, create revolutionary innovations, or master complex domains. Is it superior intelligence, more hours worked, access to greater resources? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: the capacity for sustained, uninterrupted focus directed towards singular objectives. This mental discipline creates momentum that scattered minds find absolutely mystifying. Why does this concentrated approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because attention represents the ultimate non-renewable resource. Where focus flows, results inevitably follow. Those who scatter mental energy across countless initiatives advance each minimally, while those channeling identical effort towards singular objectives create exponential progress through momentum and depth. When someone observes an individual whose attention remains utterly unshakable despite endless distraction, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its sheer intensity. How does one develop this level of concentrated mental power? Begin by recognizing the fundamental truth: multitasking represents not efficiency, but systematic ineffectiveness. The neurological research proves conclusively that attention switching destroys productivity while creating illusion of accomplishment. Implement time-blocking methodology. Dedicate uninterrupted periods exclusively to your most significant objective with all communication devices disabled. Start with 30-minute focus blocks, gradually extending to 90-minute deep work sessions. During these periods, develop almost religious intolerance for interruption, treating your attention as sacred territory requiring fierce protection. Eliza Thornton revolutionized American architectural design despite entering the field with minimal formal education. When questioned about her extraordinary rise from drafting assistant to industry innovator, Thornton revealed her sacred hours methodology. For 30 years without exception, I protected the hours between 5 o'clock and 9 o'clock. I am as utterly inviolable, she explained. While competitors fragmented attention across meetings, correspondences, and interruptions, I channeled 4 hours of absolute concentration daily toward mastery. This accumulated deep work ultimately generated design innovations that established new standards across the industry. Are you currently diluting your potential through chronic attention fracturing? Have you confused perpetual busyness with genuine productivity? What extraordinary development awaits when you channel your scattered mental energy toward concentrated progress? When your capacity for sustained focus becomes exceptional, something remarkable happens. You accomplish in weeks what scattered minds require months to produce. This accelerated progress often appears almost supernatural to conventional observers. Most individuals bounce frantically between tasks, communications, and distractions, creating perpetual motion without meaningful advancement. Your disciplined concentration generates momentum that transforms difficult challenges into conquered territory through sheer focused persistence. Remember that attention management supersedes time management in productive significance. Protect your cognitive resources with the same vigilance you would guard financial wealth. Recognize interruption not as inevitable workplace reality, but as catastrophic productivity theft. Establish firm boundaries around your most valuable possession, your capacity for undivided attention directed toward significant objectives. This mental discipline ultimately distinguishes extraordinary producers from perpetually busy underperformers. Can you identify your single most significant objective deserving concentrated focus? Will you establish sacred time blocks with religious protection against interruption? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that directs sustained attention toward singular objectives, while others fragment their potential across endless distraction. The art of strategic visualization. Something remarkable distinguishes individuals who transform possibilities into realities from those who merely contemplate potential: their relationship with mental imagery. Consider what separates those who consistently achieve ambitious objectives from equally talented individuals who routinely fall short. Is it greater effort, superior strategy, enhanced resources? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: the disciplined practice of systematic visualization, so vivid it programs the subconscious mind for inevitable achievement. This mental conditioning creates certainty that conventional thinking finds genuinely disturbing. Why does this visualization approach generate such profound advantage? Because your subconscious operating system makes no fundamental distinction between vividly imagined experience and physical reality. Those who harness this neurological phenomenon effectively program their internal navigation system toward specific objectives with extraordinary precision. When someone observes an individual who pursues ambitious goals with absolute certainty, as if already experiencing their future achievement, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its unwavering confidence. How does one implement this mental programming methodology? Begin by establishing daily visualization protocols, minimum 20 minutes of uninterrupted mental rehearsal conducted in theta wave state. During these sessions, construct multi-sensory experience of your desired achievement with extraordinary detail. See not just visual components, but incorporate sound, physical sensation, emotional response, and environmental specifics. Most critically, visualize not from external perspective, but through first-person viewpoint. Sébastien Renaud transformed French athletic competition despite physical characteristics experts deemed insufficient for championship performance. When questioned about his unprecedented rise, Renaud revealed his reality projection methodology. For 3 years before physical victory, I experienced success through complete mental immersion twice daily, he explained. 15 minutes upon waking and 15 minutes before sleeping. Visualizing with such detail, my nervous system could not distinguish mental rehearsal from physical execution. This systematic conditioning ultimately produced performance capabilities that competitors found genuinely uncanny. Are you currently approaching objectives through purely intellectual planning rather than neurological programming? Have you confused conceptual understanding with subconscious conditioning? What extraordinary achievement awaits when you align your entire nervous system towards specific outcomes through disciplined visualization? When your mental imagery becomes systematically directed, something fascinating occurs. Your subconscious resources automatically organize toward visualized outcomes. Opportunities previously invisible suddenly appear with remarkable synchronicity. Most individuals operate from conscious planning alone, utilizing mere fraction of their neurological capabilities. Your disciplined visualization harnesses the extraordinary pattern recognition and problem-solving capacity of your subconscious mind, creating acceleration that conventional achievers find genuinely mysterious. Remember that effective visualization requires emotional intensity alongside visual detail. The subconscious responds not to intellectual concepts, but to experiences infused with genuine feeling. Incorporate gratitude, excitement, and absolute certainty within your mental imagery. Consistently rehearse not just the achievement itself, but the character traits, decisions, and focused execution required for its realization. This comprehensive conditioning ultimately transforms challenging pursuits into seemingly inevitable outcomes. Will you commit to establishing systematic visualization protocol beginning tomorrow morning? Can you dedicate 20 minutes daily to programming your subconscious navigation system? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that experiences future achievement with such vivid certainty that its manifestation becomes virtually inevitable. The power of strategic discomfort. Throughout history, something profound separates individuals who achieve continuous growth from those reaching early plateaus: their relationship with discomfort. Consider what distinguishes those who maintain accelerating development across decades from equally talented individuals who peak prematurely. Is it greater intelligence, superior methodology, enhanced opportunity? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental. The deliberate pursuit of strategic discomfort as catalyst for perpetual evolution. This counterintuitive approach creates developmental velocity that conventional achievers find genuinely alarming. Why does this discomfort-seeking methodology generate such extraordinary advantage? Because profound development occurs exclusively at the boundary between capability and challenge. Those who deliberately position themselves within this uncomfortable intersection continuously expand their performance capacity, while those prioritizing comfort experience inevitable stagnation. When someone observes an individual who systematically seeks rather than avoids difficulty, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its relentless evolutionary momentum. How does one implement this growth acceleration framework? Begin by conducting honest assessment of your current comfort inventory, activities, responsibilities, and challenges you navigate without significant strain. Next, establish deliberate discomfort protocol, regularly selecting experiences calibrated precisely beyond current capability. The optimal growth zone creates discomfort sufficient to demand adaptation without triggering counterproductive anxiety. Implement the fundamental rule. If you're not experiencing regular moments of being genuinely stretched beyond comfortable capability, you've ceased meaningful development. Margaret Donaldson transformed international journalism despite beginning her career with crippling speech impediment. When questioned about her extraordinary evolution from hesitant reporter to commanding presence, Donaldson revealed her calibrated challenge system. Each Monday morning, my editor receives specific requests for assignment beyond my current capabilities, she explained. Not marginally difficult, but genuinely uncomfortable, requiring skills not yet developed, but within potential reach. This methodical, self-imposed challenge ultimately created communication mastery that industry veterans found genuinely uncanny. Are you currently prioritizing comfortable competence over uncomfortable growth? Have you confused performance plateau with achievement rather than recognizing it as developmental warning? What extraordinary capabilities remain dormant behind your avoidance of strategic discomfort? When your relationship with challenge becomes deliberately proactive rather than instinctively avoidant, something remarkable happens. Your developmental velocity accelerates beyond conventional trajectories. This creates performance evolution that appears almost supernatural to comfort-oriented observers. Most individuals instinctively organize their professional and personal lives around existing capabilities, unconsciously protecting themselves from growth-triggering discomfort. Your deliberate pursuit of calibrated challenge creates continuous adaptation that transforms potential into actualized capability through systematic stress recovery cycles. Remember that strategic discomfort differs fundamentally from masochistic struggle. The objective isn't difficulty itself, but rather carefully calibrated challenge triggering specific adaptations aligned with intentional development. Study carefully those rare individuals who maintain extraordinary growth across decades rather than years. You'll invariably discover minds that deliberately select environments and responsibilities precisely engineered to demand their continuous evolution. Will you commit to identifying 3 specific comfort zones currently limiting your development? Can you establish strategic discomfort protocols systematically confronting each limitation? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that seeks rather than avoids challenge. Recognizing discomfort not as warning to retreat, but rather as essential catalyst for extraordinary development. The alchemy of extreme responsibility. Something remarkable distinguishes individuals who transform circumstances from those perpetually shaped by them: their relationship with responsibility. Consider what separates those who create exceptional results regardless of conditions from equally talented individuals perpetually explaining why success proves currently impossible. Is it superior capability or favorable circumstances? Enhanced resources? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: their capacity to assume total responsibility for outcomes regardless of external variables. This psychological ownership creates problem-solving intensity that excuse makers find genuinely disturbing. Why does this responsibility-claiming approach generate such profound advantage? Because your sphere of influence expands in direct proportion to the responsibility you willingly assume. Those who attribute outcomes to external factors position themselves as helpless objects affected by circumstances, while those claiming total responsibility transform themselves into causative agents affecting their environment. When someone observes an individual who consistently refuses the victim position, regardless of legitimate external challenges, it creates presence that genuinely unsettles through its unstoppable resourcefulness. How does one develop this level of psychological ownership? Begin by implementing the fundamental rule: eliminate the word "because" from your explanatory vocabulary when discussing undesired outcomes. This linguistic pattern interruption forces cognitive restructuring away from justification toward resolution. Next, adopt the extreme responsibility framework. When facing any challenge, immediately ask, "How have I created this situation? Through action or inaction?" This question bypasses unproductive blame orientation, channeling mental energy directly towards solution development rather than justification construction. Harrison Montgomery transformed American manufacturing despite inheriting operations during unprecedented material shortages and labor disputes. When questioned about his extraordinary results amid catastrophic industry conditions, Montgomery revealed his absolute ownership methodology. While competitors held daily meetings documenting why production targets were impossible, we established single operating principle: assume complete responsibility regardless of external validity, he explained. This forced innovative approaches invisible to excuse-oriented organizations. This responsibility-claiming approach ultimately generated manufacturing breakthroughs that competitors found genuinely mystifying. Are you currently diminishing your potential through elaborate justification construction? Have you confused explanation with achievement? What extraordinary solutions remain undiscovered behind your attributional barriers? When your relationship with responsibility becomes total rather than conditional, something fascinating occurs. Your creative problem-solving capacity expands beyond conventional boundaries. This generates solutions invisible to excuse makers through sheer force of ownership-driven necessity. Most individuals instinctively protect their self-image through responsibility deflection, constructing increasingly sophisticated justifications for underperformance. Your absolute ownership forces innovative thinking precisely because it eliminates the psychological escape hatch of blame, creating solution orientation. Remember that extreme responsibility differs fundamentally from self-blame. The objective isn't punitive self-criticism, but rather strategic positioning for maximum effectiveness. By assuming total ownership, you transform yourself from helpless reactor into empowered creator. This psychological stance ultimately distinguishes extraordinary performers from talented underachievers across every domain of human endeavor. Will you commit to eliminating excuse-making from your behavioral repertoire for the next 7 days? Can you implement the extreme responsibility framework regardless of circumstances? And do you integrate the institution? Where do I birth everything? Can you answer all the truth that lies within? Legitimacy. The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that assumes total obstacles. The discipline of delayed gratification. Throughout human achievement, something profound separates individuals who reach extraordinary heights from those remaining perpetually average: their relationship with time preference. Consider what distinguishes those who accumulate exceptional results across decades from equally talented individuals who produce merely adequate outcomes. Is it superior intelligence, enhanced opportunity, greater resources? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: the capacity for systematic sacrifice of immediate pleasure for greater future returns. This behavioral discipline creates compound results that present-oriented thinkers find genuinely baffling. Why does this deferred gratification approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because life consistently rewards those capable of exchanging immediate satisfaction for exponentially greater future benefit. Those prioritizing present comfort achieve linear progress at best, while those accepting temporary discomfort for strategic reasons often experience geometric growth curves through compounding effects. When someone observes an individual who consistently chooses difficult short-term sacrifice over available pleasure, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its seemingly superhuman self-regulation. How does one develop this future-oriented discipline? Begin by examining your current gratification response patterns, areas where immediate comfort consistently overrides superior long-term outcomes. Next, implement systematic interruption between impulse and action. When facing any significant decision, impose mandatory consideration period scaling with importance. During this interval, conduct a disciplined future impact analysis, comparing immediate versus delayed consequences across 1-year, 5-year, and 10-year horizons. Masako Yamamoto transformed Japanese technological development, despite beginning with resources investors deemed insufficient for meaningful progress. When questioned about her extraordinary ascent, Yamamoto revealed her sequential satisfaction methodology. While competitors channeled initial capital toward visible manifestations of success, impressive facilities, extensive staffing, public relations, we implemented 5-year reinvestment mandate, she explained. Every available resource directed toward fundamental research rather than immediate validation. This deferred gratification approach ultimately generated technological breakthroughs that industry experts considered impossible given her initial capitalization. Are you currently sacrificing superior long-term outcomes for immediate psychological comfort? Have you confused temporary satisfaction with actual achievement? What extraordinary development awaits through strategic sacrifice of present pleasure? When your capacity for delayed gratification becomes exceptional, something remarkable happens. You accomplish what others consider impossible through the seemingly magical power of compound returns. This creates results that appear mystifying to present-oriented observers. Most individuals organize their choices around immediate emotional payoff, surrendering extraordinary future outcomes for modest present comfort. Your future-oriented decision framework generates compounding advantages in knowledge, resource accumulation, and capability development that collectively produce exponential rather than linear advancement. Remember that effective delayed gratification requires not rigid self-denial, but rather strategic sacrifice directed towards specific future objectives. Study carefully those individuals who maintain decade-spanning development trajectories. You'll invariably discover minds capable of experiencing genuine satisfaction from progress itself, rather than requiring immediate consumption or validation. This capacity ultimately distinguishes extraordinary achievers from talented underperformers across every domain of significant accomplishment. Will you commit to identifying 3 specific areas where present orientation currently limits your potential? Can you establish deferred gratification protocol, systematically redirecting immediate impulses towards superior future outcomes? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that sacrifices present comfort for future capability, choosing meaningful progress over temporary pleasure regardless of immediate availability. The power of deliberate conviction. Something remarkable distinguishes individuals who transform industries, movements, and societies from those generating merely incremental improvement: their relationship with certainty. Consider what separates revolutionary figures from equally talented individuals producing modest advancement. Is it superior intellect, greater opportunity, enhanced resources? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: the capacity for absolute conviction, maintained amid overwhelming opposition. This unshakable certainty creates influence that conventional thinkers find genuinely unsettling. Why does this conviction-centered approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because human psychology responds fundamentally to certainty, not merely to intellectual persuasion. Those who maintain unwavering conviction amid opposition naturally attract followers through psychological magnetism that tentative thinkers cannot comprehend. When someone observes an individual whose certainty remains utterly unshakable despite contrary evidence, mockery, or isolation, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its sheer immovability. How does one develop this level of psychological certainty? Begin by recognizing fundamental distinction between conviction and mere opinions. Opinions emerge from casual consideration, while conviction develops through systematic, comprehensive analysis culminating in absolute certainty. Implement conviction-building methodology. When adopting any significant position, conduct exhaustive counter-argument exploration, deliberately attempting to disprove your initial conclusion. Only after surviving this rigorous falsification process should belief transform into unshakable conviction. This disciplined approach creates certainty, founded upon comprehensive understanding rather than psychological comfort. Winston Harrington revolutionized British industrial safety despite universal opposition from manufacturing executives. When questioned about his extraordinary persistence amid overwhelming resistance, Harrington revealed his principled certainty framework. Before advocating any position, I systematically documented every logical counter-argument, addressing each exhaustively, he explained. This comprehensive preparation created unshakable conviction, impossible to destabilize through standard opposition. This methodical certainty ultimately transformed national safety standards, despite initial rejection by every major manufacturing association. Are you currently confusing tentative opinion with genuine conviction? Have you mistaken preference for certainty? What extraordinary influence awaits when your positions emerge not from casual consideration, but from comprehensive analysis resulting in absolute conviction? When your psychological certainty becomes genuinely unshakable, something fascinating occurs. Others begin questioning their opposition rather than your position. This creates persuasive leverage impossible through mere intellectual argumentation. Most individuals hold positions with psychological tentativeness, unconsciously communicating uncertainty through subtle behavioral and linguistic patterns. Your absolute conviction creates presence that automatically commands attention through sheer psychological weight, regardless of formal authority or credentials. Remember that effective conviction differs fundamentally from stubborn close-mindedness. The objective isn't rigid adherence to initial conclusion, but rather comprehensive understanding, so thorough it produces natural certainty. Study carefully those rare individuals who transform entire domains through sheer force of conviction. You'll invariably discover minds that reached certainty not through casual opinion formation, but through systematic analysis so thorough it eliminated all meaningful doubt. Will you commit to transforming one significant opinion into genuine conviction through comprehensive counter-argument exploration? Can you develop certainty so absolute it remains unmoved by opposition, mockery, or temporary isolation? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that stands immovable through storms of opposition, maintaining conviction, not from psychological rigidity, but from understanding so complete it renders doubt fundamentally impossible. The philosophy of ruthless execution across human achievement, something profound, separates visionaries who transform ideas into reality from equally brilliant individuals whose concepts remain perpetually unrealized. Their relationship with implementation. Consider what distinguishes revolutionary figures whose ideas reshape industries from those generating equally innovative concepts that never materialize. Is it superior creativity, more compelling vision, greater intellectual capacity? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: the disciplined commitment to flawless execution, regardless of circumstance. This implementation focus creates results that dreamers find genuinely bewildering. Why does this execution-centered approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because the marketplace rewards implementation far above ideation. Those who execute imperfectly but consistently outperform those conceptualizing perfectly but implementing sporadically by exponential margins. Ideas without implementation remain perpetually worthless, while imperfect execution creates tangible value capable of continuous refinement. When someone observes an individual who transforms concepts into reality with machine-like reliability, regardless of complexity, resistance, or resource constraints, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its relentless productivity. How does one develop this implementation mastery? Begin by establishing ruthless prioritization framework, analyzing every proposed initiative through single criterion filter. What specific, measurable result will this action produce? Next, implement systematic accountability architecture, transforming vague aspirations into precisely defined deliverables with non-negotiable deadlines and explicit success metrics. Most critically, develop intolerance for partial completion, establishing personal standard where tasks reach absolute completion rather than perpetual almost finished status that plagues conventional achievers. Isabella Rothschild transformed European healthcare delivery despite entering the field with minimal formal credentials. When questioned about her meteoric rise from administrative assistant to industry innovator, Rothschild revealed her execution quotient methodology. While competitors debated theoretical improvements during endless committee meetings, we implemented simplified solutions within 72 hours of conception, she explained. Imperfect execution improved through iteration consistently, outperformed perfect planning never implemented. This relentless implementation focus ultimately created operational breakthroughs that industry veterans considered conceptually impossible. Are you currently mistaking planning for productivity? Have you confused intellectual understanding with actual achievement? What extraordinary results await when your implementation velocity matches your conceptual capability? When your execution discipline becomes exceptional, something remarkable happens. You accomplish in months what conventional operators require years to produce. This creates output that appears almost supernatural to planning-oriented observers. Most individuals invest disproportionate energy in conceptualization, research, and preparation, while perpetually delaying implementation through psychological resistance disguised as prudence. Your ruthless execution focus generates tangible results that transform theoretical possibilities into demonstrated realities through sheer implementation force. Remember that effective execution requires not frantic activity, but rather strategic implementation of high-leverage actions directly connected to desired outcomes. Study carefully those rare individuals who transform industries through implementation mastery. You'll invariably discover minds that combine visionary thinking with relentless execution discipline, recognizing that unrealized potential represents the most tragic form of failure, regardless of conceptual brilliance. Will you commit to transforming one significant concept currently confined to intellectual contemplation into implemented reality within the next 30 days? Can you develop execution discipline so reliable it becomes a fundamental element of your professional identity? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that transforms vision into reality with ruthless consistency, creating tangible results while others remain perpetually trapped in endless preparation. The discipline of perpetual learning, something remarkable, distinguishes individuals who maintain accelerating growth across decades from those reaching premature plateaus. Their relationship with knowledge acquisition. Consider what separates revolutionary figures who transform entire domains from those demonstrating impressive but ultimately limited mastery. Is it superior intelligence, enhanced opportunity, greater initial education? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: their systematic commitment to aggressive, continuous learning, regardless of achieved status or accumulated success. This relentless knowledge pursuit creates developmental momentum that conventional achievers find genuinely mystifying. Why does this learning-centered approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because knowledge compounds through interconnection, creating exponential rather than linear returns when systematically acquired. Those who maintain aggressive learning velocity continuously expand both their capability ceiling and their implementation efficiency, while those resting on existing knowledge experience inevitable obsolescence through environmental evolution. When someone observes an individual who pursues knowledge with undiminished intensity despite recognized expertise or established success, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its perpetual developmental momentum. How does one implement this accelerated learning methodology? Begin by establishing systematic knowledge acquisition architecture. Minimum 2 hours daily, devoted exclusively to deliberate learning, regardless of schedule demands or professional obligations. Next, implement strategic knowledge diversification, deliberately exploring adjacent domains, creating intellectual cross-pollination rather than merely deepening existing expertise. Most critically, develop acute awareness of knowledge obsolescence, regularly auditing current understanding for outdated frameworks requiring replacement rather than mere modification. Richard Pendleton transformed American industrial engineering despite beginning with educational credentials competitors considered wholly insufficient. When questioned about his extraordinary ascent from factory technician to industry authority, Pendleton revealed his perpetual apprenticeship methodology. While recognized experts rested on established knowledge, I maintained learning regimen identical to my earliest developmental stage, he explained. 5 hours daily dedicated to knowledge acquisition, half within specialty, remainder deliberately exploring seemingly unrelated domains. This unrelenting learning discipline ultimately generated innovative approaches that industry veterans considered theoretically impossible given established principles. Are you currently confusing past education with ongoing development? Have you mistaken current expertise for terminal knowledge? What extraordinary capabilities await through systematic pursuit of knowledge diversification and expansion? When your learning velocity remains undiminished by achievement or recognition, something fascinating occurs. You maintain developmental trajectory, while peers experience inevitable plateaus through knowledge complacency. This creates continuously expanding capability that appears almost supernatural to status-satisfied observers. Most individuals dramatically reduce learning intensity upon reaching professional competence, unconsciously accepting knowledge limitation as natural developmental ceiling. Your perpetual learning discipline generates compounding intellectual advantages that collectively produce exponential rather than incremental capability expansion. Remember that effective learning requires not passive consumption, but rather strategic acquisition directly applicable to specific developmental objectives. Study carefully those rare individuals who maintain extraordinary growth across decades rather than years. You will invariably discover minds that combine achieved mastery with undiminished learning intensity, recognizing that knowledge satisfaction represents the most dangerous form of professional complacency, regardless of current capability. Will you commit to establishing non-negotiable daily learning protocol, minimally matching your earliest developmental intensity? Can you maintain apprenticeship mindset regardless of accumulated expertise or professional recognition? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that pursues knowledge with undiminished intensity throughout its entire development, creating perpetual growth while others accept premature limitation through learning satisfaction. The alchemy of emotional self-mastery. Throughout history, something profound separates individuals who maintain extraordinary performance regardless of circumstance from equally talented individuals whose effectiveness fluctuates dramatically: their relationship with emotional states. Consider what distinguishes revolutionary figures who produce consistent excellence amid chaos, opposition, and uncertainty from those demonstrating brilliant but inconsistent capability. Is it superior intelligence, enhanced methodology, greater resources? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: their capacity for complete emotional self-regulation regardless of external triggers or internal impulses. This psychological sovereignty creates performance stability that reactive individuals find genuinely unsettling. Why does this emotional mastery approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because effectiveness correlates directly with emotional state, regardless of intellectual capability or technical skill. Those maintaining emotional sovereignty consistently access their full cognitive resources, while emotionally reactive individuals experience perpetual performance fluctuation through state-dependent capability. When someone observes an individual who maintains complete composure amid circumstances triggering dramatic emotional destabilization in others, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its unnatural stability. How does one develop this level of emotional self-mastery? Begin by implementing systematic trigger identification protocol, documenting specific situations consistently producing unproductive emotional responses. Next, develop strategic pre-gradering methodology, mentally rehearsing optimal responses before entering potentially destabilizing scenarios, creating predetermined behavioral pathways, bypassing automatic reactivity. Most critically, establish physiological intervention discipline, recognizing that emotion manifests physically before psychologically, using respiratory control, muscular adjustment, and neurological pattern interruption to prevent emotional cascade before cognitive awareness. Victoria Wellington revolutionized international diplomacy despite navigating geopolitical conflicts experts considered emotionally unmanageable. When questioned about her extraordinary effectiveness amid extraordinary pressure, Wellington revealed her emotional sovereignty methodology. While counterparts permitted external circumstances to determine internal states, I implemented absolute emotional self-determination, she explained. Regardless of provocation, deliberate respiratory control and cognitive reframing maintained optimal neurochemical balance. This disciplined self-regulation ultimately enabled diplomatic breakthroughs that observers considered psychologically impossible given surrounding hostility. Are you currently permitting external triggers to determine your internal states? Have you confused emotional authenticity with uncontrolled reactivity? What extraordinary effectiveness awaits through systematic emotional self-regulation? When your emotional self-mastery becomes exceptional, something remarkable happens. You maintain peak cognitive function precisely when others experience dramatic capability reduction through emotional hijacking. This creates performance stability that appears almost inhuman to reactive observers. Most individuals unconsciously surrender psychological sovereignty through automatic emotional responses to external triggers, experiencing perpetual effectiveness fluctuation through state-dependent capability. Your emotional self-determination generates consistent access to your complete cognitive resources regardless of circumstance, creating extraordinary advantage, particularly within challenging environments. Remember that effective emotional mastery requires not suppression, but rather strategic regulation, aligned with optimal functionality. Study carefully those rare individuals who maintain exceptional performance across dramatically fluctuating circumstances. You'll invariably discover minds that combine healthy emotional awareness with disciplined regulation, recognizing that psychological sovereignty represents fundamental prerequisite for consistent excellence regardless of domain. Will you commit to developing complete emotional self-determination within 3 specific triggering contexts currently producing unproductive reactivity? Can you establish physiological intervention protocols interrupting emotional cascades before psychological awareness? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that determines its emotional states, rather than being determined by them. Maintaining psychological sovereignty while others remain perpetually controlled by external circumstance. The architecture of strategic thinking across human achievement. Something profound separates individuals who consistently identify optimal pathways from those repeatedly trapped within conventional approaches. Their relationship with strategic cognition. Consider what distinguishes revolutionary figures who transform challenges into unprecedented opportunities from equally intelligent individuals who remain confined within established paradigms. Is it superior intelligence, greater creativity, enhanced information access? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: their systematic cultivation of multi-level strategic thinking transcending conventional analysis. This cognitive architecture creates solution pathways that linear thinkers find genuinely mystifying. Why does this strategic thinking approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because conventional cognition operates predominantly through association and extrapolation, creating inherently limited solution sets constrained by existing frameworks. Those who systematically develop strategic thinking capacity consistently identify possibilities invisible to linear analysis through multidimensional pattern recognition and conceptual recombination. When someone observes an individual who repeatedly transforms seemingly intractable problems into elegantly resolvable scenarios, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its almost supernatural problem-solving velocity. How does one develop this strategic thinking capability? Begin by implementing systematic perspective-shifting protocol, analyzing every significant challenge through minimum 5 distinct conceptual frameworks rather than defaulting to habitual approach. Next, establish deliberate assumption testing methodology through identifying foundational premises underlying conventional analysis, systematically questioning each through contrary evidence exploration. Most critically, develop scenario projection discipline, mentally simulating multiple potential decision pathways through second, third, and fourth order consequence mapping rather than merely evaluating immediate outcome. Hidetoshi Nakamura revolutionized Japanese industrial manufacturing despite resource constraints experts considered categorically prohibitive. When questioned about his extraordinary breakthrough amid seemingly impossible limitations, Nakamura revealed his strategic architecture methodology. While competitors analyzed challenges through traditional problem solution framework, we implemented systematic perspective rotation, he explained, examining identical circumstances through minimum 7 distinct conceptual models until limitation transformed into exploitable advantage. This disciplined cognitive approach ultimately generated manufacturing innovations that industry veterans considered logically impossible given existing constraints. Are you currently confining your analysis within conventional frameworks? Have you mistaken habitual approaches for optimal methodology? What extraordinary solutions await through systematic cultivation of multi-level strategic thinking? When your strategic cognition becomes exceptional, something fascinating occurs. You consistently identify high-leverage opportunities invisible to conventional analysis through perceptual frameworks that transcend standard evaluation. This creates solution velocity that appears almost supernatural to linear thinkers. Most individuals unconsciously confine problem solving within established paradigms, experiencing perpetual limitation through unexamined analytical constraints. Your strategic thinking discipline generates solution pathways that transform seemingly intractable challenges into elegantly resolvable scenarios through perspective diversity and assumption questioning. Remember that effective strategic thinking requires not merely intelligence, but rather disciplined methodology systematically transcending conventional analysis. Study carefully those rare individuals who consistently transform industries through unprecedented solutions. You'll invariably discover minds that combine analytical rigor with perspective flexibility, recognizing that paradigmatic constraints represent the most significant limitation to breakthrough thinking, regardless of intellectual capacity. Will you commit to analyzing one significant current challenge through minimum 5 distinct conceptual frameworks rather than defaulting to habitual approach? Can you develop perspective shifting discipline as fundamental element of your cognitive architecture? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that transcends conventional analysis through systematic perspective diversity, transforming limitations into advantages through strategic cognition while others remain confined within established paradigms. The discipline of radical accountability. Consider what distinguishes revolutionary figures who transform limitations into advantages from those repeatedly citing external factors for underperformance. Is it superior capability, enhanced opportunity, greater resources? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental, their unflinching commitment to radical self-accountability, transcending conventional responsibility. This ownership mentality creates problem-solving intensity that excuse makers find genuinely disturbing. Why does this accountability-centered approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because your sphere of influence expands in direct proportion to the responsibility you willingly assume beyond reasonable expectation. Those who accept accountability exclusively within formal obligation remain perpetually limited by circumstance, while those embracing radical responsibility transform themselves into causative agents affecting their environment regardless of formal authority. When someone observes an individual who assumes complete ownership for outcomes far exceeding their official responsibility, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its boundless resourcefulness. How does one develop this level of ownership mentality? Begin by implementing systematic excuse elimination protocol. Whenever facing underperformance, immediately redirect analysis from external justification toward personal contribution regardless of circumstance, legitimacy. Next, establish ownership expansion methodology, where systematically discrimination is the norm for expertise expansion. Legitimacy will be real. Most critically, develop solution orientation, reflexively replacing problem analysis, instantly transitioning from why this happened to how I resolve this without intermediate justification phase. Are you currently confining your accountability within formal responsibility boundaries? Have you mistaken legitimate justification for optimal orientation? What extraordinary impact awaits through systematic expansion of personal ownership beyond conventional expectation? When your accountability orientation becomes genuinely radical, something remarkable happens. You identify solution pathways completely invisible to excuse-oriented thinking through sheer force of ownership-driven necessity. This creates results that appear almost supernatural to justification-oriented observers. Most individuals instinctively constrain accountability within reasonable expectation, unconsciously limiting their impact through responsibility restriction. Your radical ownership creates extraordinary leverage by forcing innovative thinking precisely because it eliminates the psychological escape hatch of justified limitation. Remember that effective accountability requires not self-flagellation, but rather strategic positioning for maximum effectiveness. Study carefully those rare individuals who transform organizations through ownership-centered leadership. You'll invariably discover minds that combine reasonable assessment with unreasonable responsibility, recognizing that accountability represents fundamental prerequisite for transformative impact, regardless of formal position. Will you commit to eliminating all excuse orientation from your behavioral repertoire for the next 14 days? Can you identify 3 specific areas where expanded accountability would create disproportionate impact despite formal authority limitation? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that assumes ownership beyond reasonable expectation, creating extraordinary results where excuse makers find only insurmountable obstacles. The Algesians of Define Advantage, what separates revolutionary figures who transform entire domains from those generating commendable but ultimately forgettable contributions. Is it superior intelligence, greater opportunity, enhanced resources? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: their absolute clarity regarding definite purpose transcending vague aspiration. This purpose specificity creates achievement velocity that wandering minds find genuinely mystifying. Why does this purpose-centered approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because mental energy operates under conservation principles. When concentrated towards singular objective, it generates exponential impact. While diffused across multiple directions, it produces negligible movement in any. Those who establish definite purpose channel their complete psychic energy towards specific achievement, while those maintaining vague aspirations dissipate identical resources across scattered objectives. When someone observes an individual whose entire existence appears organized around singular, definite purpose, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its laser-like concentration. How does one develop this purpose crystallization? Begin by conducting systematic desire inventory, documenting every significant aspiration currently occupying mental bandwidth without initial qualification or judgment. Next, implement ruthless priority distillation, subjecting each desire to elimination. Tournament structured around single criterion: which accomplishment would render all others unnecessary or automatically achieved. Continue this systematic elimination until identifying singular achievement representing core purpose beneath all peripheral desires. Most critically, develop absolute clarity regarding specific outcome representing purpose fulfillment, transforming vague aspiration into precisely defined achievement with unmistakable completion criteria. Thomas Wellington revolutionized international economic development despite beginning with resources experts considered categorically insufficient. When questioned about his extraordinary impact amid overwhelming limitation, Wellington revealed his definite purpose methodology. While contemporaries pursued multiple worthy objectives simultaneously, I implemented absolute concentration principle, identifying singular achievement, rendering all others either unnecessary or automatically accomplished, he explained. This purpose crystallization created resource multiplication, invisibility to diffused attention. This purpose specificity ultimately generated developmental breakthroughs that global authorities considered mathematically impossible given available resources. Are you currently diffusing your mental energy across multiple simultaneous aspirations? Have you confused admirable activity with optimal concentration? What extraordinary achievement awaits through systematic distillation toward definite purpose? When your purpose clarity becomes exceptional, something fascinating occurs. You accomplish singular objectives with velocity that appears almost supernatural to diffused attention observers. This creates achievement acceleration beyond conventional capability through sheer force of concentrated mental energy. Most individuals unconsciously scatter their finite resources across numerous worthy aspirations, experiencing perpetual limitation through attention dilution. Your definite purpose creates extraordinary leverage by focusing your complete psychic energy towards specific achievement rather than diffusing identical resources across scattered objectives. Remember that effective purpose requires not merely enthusiasm, but rather ruthless specificity regarding desired achievement. Study carefully those rare individuals who transform entire domains through singular contribution. You'll invariably discover minds that combine broad awareness with narrow execution, recognizing that purpose diffusion represents the most significant limitation to extraordinary achievement regardless of raw capability. Will you commit to conducting comprehensive purpose distillation, identifying singular achievement representing core aspiration beneath all peripheral desires? Can you develop absolute clarity regarding specific outcome representing definite purpose fulfillment? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that channels complete mental energy towards singular definite purpose, creating extraordinary achievement velocity, while others remain perpetually limited through attention diffusion. The science of decision. Vehemently throughout human accomplishment, something profound separates individuals who transform potential into reality from equally capable individuals perpetually trapped in analysis: their relationship with decision-making. What distinguishes revolutionary figures who create extraordinary impact from those generating impressive but ultimately unrealized potential? Is it superior intelligence, enhanced opportunity, greater resources? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: their capacity for rapid, high-quality decision-making transcending conventional deliberation. This decision velocity creates implementation momentum that perfectionists find genuinely alarming. Why does this decision-centered approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because execution speed correlates directly with competitive advantage across virtually every domain of significance. Those who make high-quality decisions rapidly, consistently, outperform those making marginally better decisions slowly by orders of magnitude. When someone observes an individual who transitions from analysis to action with seemingly supernatural speed without corresponding quality reduction, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its implementation velocity. How does one develop this decision-making mastery? Begin by implementing systematic decision classification, categorizing choices through reversibility analysis rather than traditional importance evaluation. Decisions with minimal reversal cost require minimal deliberation, while irreversible decisions warrant proportional consideration. Next, establish adequate information thresholds, predetermining specifically what data qualifies as sufficient for decision, rather than allowing perpetual research expansion. When questioned about her extraordinary implementation velocity amid unprecedented volatility, Blackwell revealed her decision acceleration methodology. While competitors remain trapped in perpetual analysis, seeking perfect clarity, we implemented two-tiered decision architecture: reversible choices made instantly upon minimal viable information, irreversible decisions allocated precisely calibrated deliberation, she explained. This decisional framework created implementation velocity invisible to perfection organizations. This decision-making discipline ultimately generated technological breakthroughs that industry veterans considered developmentally impossible given time frame constraints. Are you currently confusing analysis with progress? Have you mistaken perfect decisions for optimal outcomes? What extraordinary implementation awaits through systematic acceleration of decision velocity? When your decision-making becomes exceptionally efficient, something remarkable happens. You transform potential into reality with implementation speed that appears almost supernatural to deliberation-oriented observers. This creates achievement velocity beyond conventional capability. Through elimination of decisional friction, most individuals unconsciously extend analysis beyond optimal information thresholds, experiencing perpetual limitation through implementation delay. Your decision discipline creates extraordinary leverage by compressing the gap between conceptualization and execution, recognizing that marginal quality improvement rarely justifies exponential implementation delay. Remember that effective decision-making requires not recklessness, but rather strategic classification based on reversibility, rather than merely perceived importance. Study carefully those rare individuals who transform industries through implementation velocity. You'll invariably discover minds that combine analytical rigor with decisional efficiency, recognizing that perpetual deliberation represents one of the most significant limitations to extraordinary achievement, regardless of conceptual brilliance. Will you commit to implementing systematic decision classification based on reversibility rather than traditional importance evaluation? Can you establish adequate information thresholds predetermining what data qualifies as sufficient for various decision categories? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that transitions from analysis to action with exceptional velocity, creating extraordinary implementation momentum, while others remain perpetually trapped in deliberation. The mastery of strategic optimism. Consider what distinguishes revolutionary figures who transform limitations into unprecedented opportunities from those remaining perpetually restricted by current realities. Is it superior intelligence, enhanced resources, greater opportunity? While these factors contribute, beneath them lies something more fundamental: their disciplined cultivation of strategic optimism transcending conventional positivity. This future creation mentality generates possibility awareness that pessimistic realists find genuinely incomprehensible. Why does this optimism-centered approach generate such extraordinary advantage? Because perception fundamentally precedes creation. Possibilities must be envisioned before they can be realized. Those cultivating strategic optimism consistently identify opportunity pathways completely invisible to problem-oriented perception, creating solution architectures that negative realists consider logically impossible. When someone observes an individual who repeatedly transforms seemingly intractable limitations into exploitable advantages, it creates presence that genuinely intimidates through its reality-transcending perspective. How does one develop this strategic optimism capability? Begin by implementing systematic opportunity extraction when facing any challenge, immediately conducting comprehensive analysis, specifically identifying potential advantages concealed within apparent limitation. Next, establish possibility expansion methodology, deliberately exploring solution pathways conventional analysis deems impossible, systematically questioning every cannot assumption restricting conventional thinking. Most critically, develop future backward thinking, mentally establishing desired outcome as inevitable, then reverse engineering creation pathway from future achievement rather than forward projecting from current limitation. Jonathan Richardson revolutionized manufacturing during economic constraints experts considered categorically prohibitive. When questioned about his extraordinary innovation amid seemingly impossible limitations, Richardson revealed his strategic optimism architecture. While competitors documented elaborate analysis proving achievement impossibility, we implemented intentional perspective reversal, systematically identifying advantage potential within each apparent constraint, he explained. This perceptual discipline revealed opportunity pathways completely invisible to problem-oriented analysis. This optimism-centered approach ultimately generated manufacturing breakthroughs that economic experts considered mathematically impossible given existing constraints. Are you currently allowing circumstantial awareness to restrict possibility perception? Have you confused realistic assessment with optimal orientation? What extraordinary opportunities remain invisible behind your limitation-centered perception? When your optimism becomes genuinely strategic rather than merely emotional, something fascinating occurs. You consistently identify possibility pathways completely invisible to problem-oriented perception through fundamentally different reality interpretation. This creates solution architecture that appears almost supernatural to negatively biased observers. Most individuals unconsciously adopt limitation-centered perception as realism, experiencing perpetual constraint through opportunity blindness. Your strategic optimism generates extraordinary leverage by revealing advantage potential within apparent limitation, creating achievement pathways conventional analysis considers logically impossible. Remember that effective optimism requires not naive positivity, but rather disciplined perspective specifically engineered to reveal concealed opportunity. Study carefully those rare individuals who transform crises into breakthroughs. You'll invariably discover minds that combine factual awareness with possibility focus, recognizing that perception selectivity represents fundamental prerequisite for extraordinary achievement regardless of circumstantial reality. Will you commit to implementing systematic opportunity extraction, specifically identifying advantage potential within 3 current limitations? Can you establish deliberate perception discipline, reversing conventional problem opportunity orientation? The mind that terrifies through its strength is precisely the mind that perceives possibility where others see only limitation, creating extraordinary achievement through strategic optimism while others remain perpetually constrained by realistic perception. Start training your mind like your life depends on it, because it does. A powerful mind is not gifted, it is built, brick by brick, with focus, with pain, with relentless effort. Every distraction you resist, every fear you conquer, every habit you master makes your mind unbreakable. Stop waiting for confidence. Stop hoping for strength. Build it. Own it. Forge a mindset so powerful that even your silence commands respect. The time to build that mind is not tomorrow, it is now.